us about what it was like to be on the forefront of the movement? We see what we saw on the television today, but what was it like as a participant?
You know, now, I was more of a supporter. I was in that supporting role. And when the NAACP was banned, outlawed in Alabama, the Alabama legislature, John Patterson was the governor. They outlawed the NAACP. You know, you got an organization that's looking out for your rights. So the white folks didn't want that.
Right.
Fred Shuttlesworth, some more of the pastors. I was not preaching at that time. They formed the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. And they would meet every Monday night. My mama, my dad, and my uncle. We would always go to the meetings every Monday night, different churches in Birmingham. But I was supporting the leadership.
Right.
What I did. You know, preachers, I was not preaching at that time. They was out in the forefront. But Fred Shuttlesworth was a good. If Martin Luther King were in this room and we were talking and Fred Shuttlesworth knocked on the door, Martin Luther King would say, "Here comes the greatest." He recognized Fred Shuttlesworth just that way. Now we supported. Now I was one who introduced Fred Shuttlesworth many times at meetings and things. They would ask me to introduce Fred. You know, when they bombed his house, it was almost one Christmas. His house was directly in front of Bethel Baptist Church. He bombed his house. But miraculously, Reverend Shuttlesworth was not hurt. And I like to tell people when I was introducing, he blew the dynamite smoke out of his nose. And then he said to an oppressed people, "He shall be free." You know, that's the way I would introduce Fred. But when we got ready for black policemen there, when I passed the exam, they claimed that no other blacks could pass. But now Reverend Shuttlesworth, he had me to teach a class. And we recruited some of those young black men who had been in the military, and these MPs and them trying to get them. But Fred Shuttlesworth had me to teach a class to try to train them guys out of that. So I was supportive, you know, of them.
You know, it's a funny thing how I used to listen to, I remember me and my dad. My dad was a military man, and during the time, this is like in 1957 or 58, we were on the way down Highway 80 going to Fort Bliss, Texas. But going to Fort Bliss, Texas, you had to go through Texarkana. And it was my dad. My mother passed away when I was 11. So it was my dad, my two sisters, my big old dog, and the cat. So we riding down the freeway. He told me to stop over and get a hamburger. So I went up there to get a hamburger, and he said, "Boy, boy, you can't get no ham. You got to go in the back." You know what I mean? And when he told me that, I showed you how far I was removed from that. It just took my appetite away. But my dad was just giving me the game, so to speak. You know what I mean? To let it know, he's exposed me to the real world. You know. And then I remember when we were going to through Dallas, we couldn't find any place to stay. And my father put on his military uniform, and during that time he was a major, you know what I mean. But this is through the reserves. He was a major. He put on his military uniform and walked up to one of these big hotels and demanded lodging for his children. You know what I'm saying? He told me he was a military officer fighting for this country and blah, 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 blah. And they said, "Yes, sir," and let him in. And all the black porters, they was looking at us, you know, because they had never seen anything like that. And that was just so amazing that how the Lord gave him grace for that particular night, you know what I mean, to go through that. Yeah. And I just remember all the struggles that us blacks have been through, you know, and what you guys had to go through just to get to where we are today. And there's still a struggle, tremendous struggle each and every day, you know what I mean?
Right.
Not only a physical struggle, but a spiritual struggle. So, so it's amazing how far we've gone, you know, through the years. But I remember my grandmother and how we used to have so much fun back in the day, you know, going to church and church picnics and canoeing down the Belle Isle and all of the wonderful things we did, you know. And I also remember how we got away from that, you know. You know,
Yeah.
we started focusing on money, worldly things, and stuff like that, and kind of get off. A lot of us got off track, so so to speak. So,
And that's sad. Money, worldly things, and materialism. That's what got us off track. Now, I saw a sign at a church in Chattanooga. And that sign says, when we were colored. Remember when they called us colored
I remember
folks?
that.
Then they called us Negroes, and they called us blacks.
Right.
So we have gone through a name evolution. You know?
Yeah, we have.
And then they called us Afro-Americans when Angela Davis came along, you know. And she got started wearing that bushy hair. So we were Afro-Americans then.
Right.
Then we dropped that F-R-O, and then we evolved into African America.
Right.
So right now we are African American. But this church had a sign that said, when we were colored, when King was here, 40s and 50s, we were colored people then. They said when we were colored, we had church. And they took each alphabet in that word church, and they spelled out a characteristic that we had as a race of people that we don't have now. For instance, that first C, they said commitment.
Right.
During the 40s and 50s, our people didn't have much money, but we had commitment.
Right.
And that's what built colleges, black colleges and things, and the businesses that we had in the black community, and even the black churches then, we had commitment then. We didn't have the money that we have now. And then they said that H, it stood for honesty. When we were known as colored people, during the 40s and 50s, we were more honest people than we are now. And of course, our parents taught us, give a man an honest day's work, and you expect an honest day's pay.
Right.
But we got so many young people now just try to get by, you know, and just do anything. I was reading the paper down here where the young black man like that, they hired him somewhere without a job. And the fella in jail right now started a church, building a church, so much money, and stole $2 million, you know.
I know who that is.
Honesty.
Yeah.
And then that U in church stood for unity.
Right.
Togetherness. Now our parents taught us that a house divided against itself cannot stand.
That's right.
That's why we were a beautiful people when we were following King, you know, unite. Then they said that R stood for respect. Respect. They told us we, you know, respect God, respect the church, respect others, and respect yourself. We got so many of our young don't respect nobody now. I remember a man in my young fella at my church, a deputy sheriff came up. They up there sitting on the hood of somebody else's car. They didn't even want to move. And the lady about to call the deputy sheriff to get them to move off the lady's car. And the boy's grandmama to keep that deputy from doing anything to him, had to give him respect, you know.
Right.
And then they said that other C, C-H-U-R-C, it stood for care and concern. Now, when we were known as colored people, when we were in the 40s, we did have more care and concern for each other.
We did.
Now, I remember my dad, we was over in Alabama, they kill a hog, and when they would kill that hog, they put little piles of meat. And they would get a pile and say, take this pile over to Uncle John over there.
Right.
Take this pile of Aunt Jane over there. But now we live next to folks, and we'll pick up the obituary column, and we see our next door neighbor in the obituary, they're having a funeral tomorrow, and we didn't even know they were sick.
That's right.
Care, concern. And then that last C-H-U-R-C-A, it stood for hope.
Right.
And that's what Jesse Jackson said, keep hope alive.
Right.
But I agree with you. Well, we got off track when King gave us these rights, and we got them rights and things. We got so hung up on materialism, and we got so hung up on having a good time, that we just neglected to teach our young people, children. And that's why we got to have some of this mentoring stuff now to start teaching the young people what the mamas and daddies didn't teach them.
You know, it's a funny thing when you said that. That is so true. When we were in Detroit, it was segregated, but we had everything in that black community. We had our own doctors, our own lawyers, own businessmen, own policemen, own everything. You know, but when we had segregation, we us as black men and black women, we kind of like wandered out. We wanted to see what's going on the other side of town. And a lot of us, we forgot our roots, we got our ways, you know what I mean? Because we're trying to assimilate.
Yeah.
Which, of course, nothing wrong with assimilation, but excuse me, but we lost our way.
Yes.
That's right. Sure.